What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the Pika Pika Papa, and today we're going to be looking at a really intense, really extensive data set around some of the biggest things that have been happening in the Pokemon space over the last 30 days. We're going to look at the most popular cards, we're going to look at the most popular sets, we're going to look at the most popular characters, and we're going to see some things in this video today we've never seen before. We've been doing this video series for about 3 years now, and it is rare that we say there's something on here we've never seen before, but it's going to be a first, and I think it could signal a little bit of a shift, and I think it's a good shift, but it'll be really interesting to talk about and certainly a lot of fun. The other thing that we're going to see is we're going to look at some really interesting data points, and I'm going to talk about them as we get further into this video that kind of support my notion. I've been talking a lot about prismatic evolutions and how I think that set has the opportunity in time to be very special. There's a ton of prismatic evolutions products out right now. But I think in the long run, some of the things that we're going to talk about, some of the things we're going to see in this data is going to give us some insight as to why I think it's going to be really, really strong in the years ahead. And the same thing for Destined Rivals. We're going to start to draw some similarities between what we're seeing with both of those sets in terms of some of the card volume that we're going to talk about here. And the thing that both of those have in common is they both have really bad pull rates. When you think about the pull rates of the chase cards, Destined Rival, the odds of getting that Team Rocket's Mewtwo is about 1 in 1,000 packs. And then when you think about the Umbreon from Prismatic Evolutions, right, the odds of that is about 1 in every 1,400 packs. So we're going to see a lot of that shine through here. It's going to be a ton of fun. And like I said, very rarely do we get to say we see a first. And the first that we're going to talk about, I think, is really exciting. Now, you might be wondering, what is this massive data set that we're going to be talking about? Well, every single month we get the grading data from PSA. And as I said, we break it down into the most graded cards and sets and characters. And, you know, this information is really important because even if you're not into grading, even if that's not your thing, this is a big indication as to what people who are spending a lot of money in the hobby, a lot of investors, right? A lot of people who are looking at this with a long-term lens because grading cards, love it or hate it, you know, it's a great store of cards for long-term price appreciation. Like, this gives us an idea of what's happening at the macro level of the market. And I think it is very, very insightful. And what we have seen happening in this space really over the last, say, 5 or 6 months has been nothing short of amazing. And what I mean by that is if you look at this graph right here on the page, okay, so we have been graphing this information for a very long time. So this comes from gemrate.com. They're fantastic. I've been using them as long as they've been around. But you can see this is the grading graph for TCG cards by month at PSA. So you can see back in January of 2022, there was 273,000 TCG cards graded at PSA. Now, fast forward to where we are, talk about April of 2025, we saw these ridiculously high highs that we've never even seen sniff at before. So in April of 2025, there was 951,000 TCG cards graded at PSA. Prior to that, the previous 2 months were all-time highs where we saw 746,000 and 726,000. And then prior to that, the highest we'd ever seen was like 570,000. So, I mean, we're not talking about small jumps here. We're talking about really from January of 2022, really all the way until you see that 570,000 mark. Like, there was really kind of slow organic growth. And yes, the overall grading volume was going up, but what has happened over the last 7 months is absolutely incredible in terms of increasing in grading volume. Now, you might be wondering, does that mean we're in the middle of like a junk slab era? But I don't really think we are. I don't think we know yet. We're going to have to wait more time. But that's why I find this video series so valuable. Like, we all feel like there's a lot of grading going on, but this absolutely confirms, and you can see we've almost set this new baseline ever since April at like 950,000 TCG cards graded, right? And then May, it broke 1 million TCG cards graded. June, 878,000. So again, close to 900,000. July, 996,000. August, 969,000. Like, just absolutely crazy numbers in terms of TCG grading volume at PSA. Now, you might be wondering, well, that's all well and good, but how does that stack up to other things? Now, PSA in the month of August graded 1.66 million items, which is an incredible number, just short of the highest month they've ever had, which was 1.67 million items. So we're talking about just barely down versus the previous month, which was the largest month ever in the history of PSA. But out of that, look at what happened. Out of that, there was 1.01 million TCG and non-sports cards that were graded. So over 60.84% of every single item that PSA graded last month was either TCG or non-sports. And again, let me say this, even if you are not into the grading side of things, this shows you how the overall shift from sports cards into TCG cards and non-sports cards is moving. This is primarily driven by PSA. As we get into the rest of this video, you're going to see all the data to support that. We're going to look at TCG versus ball sports here in just a minute, but I cannot properly tell you how incredible this shift has been. This is 5 consecutive months where over 60% of all of the items that have been graded at PSA have come from this TCG and non-sports cards. It is a shift in the overall hobby, not just in Pokemon or in the TCGs, but remember, think about the breadth and depth of baseball, basketball, football. Think about how popular they are. Think about how huge those brands are. Think about all of the sports cards that are out there. I mean, the boxes now are costing somewhere $10,000, $50,000. It's just insane. Despite all of that, TCG and non-sports cards for the last 5 consecutive months has represented over 60% of the grading volume at PSA. You just have to take a pause and you just have to really think about that. I think it's a good thing. I think it shows more people are coming into our hobby, which again, kind of hurts because we talk about supply and demand. Obviously, demand is at an all-time high. It's not meeting supply. But in the long run, if you're like me, if you're in this for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I think more people in the hobby is a good thing. And I love to see this space taking a big shift. Now, we talked about versus the ball sports. So this is my own graph that I started quite a while ago, and it was one of the reasons that I got into TCG. I've always been a big sports card collector. I've been collecting PSA graded NFL Hall of Fame rookie cards for over 23 years now, so I've always been an avid investor in the card space. But when my kids got into Pokemon, I made the shift and I fell in love with it, and I've been doing it ever since. But the more I started to learn about Pokemon and TCG, the more I started to be convinced that in the long run, TCG was going to overtake ball sports, and that is why I started this graph. And now it's starting to come to fruition. We'll have to see if it maintains it, but it's really kind of, I don't know, full circle for me because I started this because I thought it was going to happen, and now we're starting to see it, so it's just really, really cool for me. But what I consider the ball sports is baseball, basketball, and football, okay? So what that orange line represents is the aggregate number of baseball, basketball, and football cards that have been graded by month at PSA, and the blue line represents the number of Pokemon or TCG cards. Remember, TCG is all-encompassing. This includes Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! And One Piece and Lorcana and all of that. It's all-encompassing, but what you can see is ever since we started graphing this out, in the beginning, ball sports and Pokemon were really going 1 for 1. Ball sports and TCG was kind of like a heavyweight fight. And then we went through a period where ball sports broke out and TCG really started to fall behind. But ever since we hit 2025, TCG has been running away with it. Now, we need more data points. We need more time to understand, is this just cyclical, or if this is how it's going to be for the future? We'll just have to wait and see. No matter what, I do think there will be some ebbs and flows in both of these, but I certainly think TCG is starting to break out, and it's going to set its own barrier. And I think it's really cool, really fun, and really exciting for all of us. So the next thing that we talk about here are the most graded individual cards. And when I said in the beginning of the video that there's something on here we've never seen before, we have seen English cards ad nauseum here on this list, obviously. We've seen Japanese cards. We've had months where 9 or 10 of the 10 cards on here were Japanese. Like, Japanese absolutely owned this segment. What we have never seen is a card in a language outside of English or Japanese. And if you look, the number 1 card graded at PSA in terms of volume last month was a Korean card. I know nothing about it because that's not my area of expertise. I am English focused, but as you can see, it's a Scarlet and Violet promo card. It's the Ditto card, Project Ditto, QR Stamp Rally. That card was the most graded card at PSA last month. Hard stop. We've never seen anything outside of Japanese and English, so this is really, really cool to see. The other thing I want to talk about is for the last couple months, I just kept waiting for a Destined Rivals card to be on here. I kept waiting, for a Prismatic Evolution card on here because this is a little bit of a lagging indicator, right? Because what happens is the cards don't make this list until they're actually graded. So set comes out, people are obviously submitting the cards, but until they're graded, they don't get counted in this list. So usually sets come out, takes a couple months for them to hit. We have not seen any Prismatic Evolutions or any Destined Rival cards on this list. And for me, that only goes to bolster the fact that I believe that those are going to be really, really special in the long run, because that tells me people want these cards graded. People want them in PSA 10s. There's going to be a high value associated with that, right? That's not a surprise to any of us. But the fact that we're not seeing it on this list simply means to me that there's not as many of them out there as some of these other cards on the list. And that's doubled down by when you think about the number 2 card, a card we've seen on here a lot, is that Charizard special illustration rare from 151. And I did a ton of content on this recently. Like, the pull rates for that Charizard card was 1 in every 225 packs versus the pull rate for that Team Rocket's Mewtwo, which was 1 in every 1,000 packs, or, the Umbreon from Prismatic Evolutions, which was 1 in every 1,440 packs, right? Like, there's just not enough of those 2 cards out there to have them, the grading volume, to make this list, which again, to me, just doubles down on why I think in the long run, they're going to be really, really special. The Charizard's going to be really special too. too, not taking anything away from that, but there is a huge number of them that have been sent to PSA. You see that column right there, that all time in the parentheses, it says 000S, that's in the thousands, right? There has been almost 70,000 of those 151 Charizards that have been sent to PSA for grading. So no shortage of them in PSA holders out there. Now, so as I said, really cool things. Japanese has been hot before. We're starting to see Japanese cool off. This is 2 months in a row where only 3 of the cards on here are actually in Japanese. I've been talking a lot about 151. I talked about the Charizard there coming in at number 2. We got the Blastoise coming in down there at number 10. There's a lot of momentum as far as I'm concerned in the 151 space. And then the promo cards. This is something that I've talked about a lot. I've always been fascinated by promo. I think some promo cards have the opportunity to be overlooked in the beginning and really reach their full potential even years down the road, which we're going to see and we see right here. Matter of fact, when we look at the most graded sets, you're going to see that really highlighted here in just a second. So don't sleep on some of these promos. The thing that I don't like right now, I feel like the Pokemon Company is kind of just reprinting and then adding stamps to some of the original artwork. I want alt art promos. Those are the ones that I'm talking about. Alt art promos, I think, are where it's at. So a really cool list of the most graded cards, and I thought there was a whole lot to take away from here now that we haven't seen any prismatic or any Destined Rival cards on the list as of yet. Now, when you look at the most graded sets, the most graded set is Destined Rivals, which I think speaks volumes for the fact that there's obviously a lot of interest. Obviously, a lot of people are sending those cards in to get graded, but there's just not enough of those individual chase cards to make it on the most graded card list. It is fascinating to me. Again, it just solidifies the fact that the interest is through the roof and that there's a lot of validity to the fact that the cards are super, super highly valued. That's why they're sending them all through to get graded. But again, just not enough of them to crack the top 10 list, which is really interesting because again, look what you see. You see Prismatic Evolutions. I think that's all the way down there at number 5. So the Prismatic Evolution set as a whole is doing really well. Not enough of the individual cards to pop on that. 151, however, 151, look at the total number of 151 cards that have been graded, over 566,000 on there. And Terastal Festival is up here as well. Over 454,000 of those cards have been graded, and Crown Zenith refuses to go away. It is absolutely wild to see Crown Zenith continue to be on this list month after month after month. It is a ton of fun. It is a really deep set, right? So I'm not concerned about that. There's a ton of cards worth grading in Crown Zenith, but this just goes to show you that even a set from the 2023 can still maintain all of that value from Sword and Shield, right? Speaking of older sets, how about the 1999 Pokemon game coming up on 1 million cards that had been graded from that original set? Again, it just goes to show you oldies but goodies. People still have a high degree of interest on it. Really, really exciting to see that 1999 Pokemon game. And you'd be surprised. There's a lot of months when that 1999 set is listed on here. Surging Sparks has fallen off, but I thought it was interesting because Journey Together has been on here a whole lot. So Journey Together is a set. It came out kind of right in the middle of that big Scarlet and Violet downturn, and it didn't quite hit with the fanfare everybody thought. So Scarlet or Journey Together has kind of been getting its tail kicked a little bit. But again, there's a lot of interest in it. Lots of cards are getting graded there from Journey Together. And then again, I talked about the promo cards. You'll see the recent promos, 2025 Black Star promos is on here, and the 2023 Black Star promos is on here as well. So really interesting to see the diversity in the sets in terms of age and also in terms of the fact that some of these sets, there's a lot of these sets as a whole that's being sent through for being graded, but we're not seeing enough volume from those individual cards to crack that top individual card list. Just really, really cool stuff. And again, this is why I think this is so incredibly fascinating. The next thing that we're talking about is the most graded subjects, and Pikachu. Listen, when Pikachu took the top spot from Charizard, again, we've been doing this for over 3 years. Pikachu maybe had it for 1 or 2 months prior to, but Pikachu has been at the top spot for like 6 consecutive months now. It is absolutely fantastic as far as I'm concerned. I'm a huge Pikachu fan. Charizard, again, when you look at the total graded for August, is way, way behind, right? You're talking about almost 30,000 less Charizard cards were graded versus Pikachu cards. Now, the other thing that's interesting to call out is this is the exact same list of Pokemon for 3 consecutive months. And as far as I'm concerned, I actually think that's a good thing. It's nice to see that the grading volume, the majority of the characters that are getting graded, every single one of these is a familiar name. These are some of the biggest names in Pokemon. Sometimes, we'll see some other cards which pop up on here because they might get caught up in the middle of a market hype or something like that. And sometimes I'm like, the Kilowattrel card, not necessarily sure if that one's worthy of being in the most graded subjects, and the price eventually comes down. So I'm really, really, optimistic. And I really like the fact that we've seen these these same names on this list for 3 consecutive months. I think the market is starting to really solidify a little bit after a little bit of a, I won't call it a bubble, but obviously the prices were coming down ever since February of 2025. Scarlet and Violet's starting to work its way back up. Sword and Shield starting to work its way back up. You know, we're starting to see some of these cards really start to consolidate here at the top with some really awesome Pokemon. Now, next thing that we talk about here, and I always say take it with a big grain of salt, but these are gem rates by era from the 4 big grading companies. You got Beckett, you got PSA, you got SGC, you got CGC, and it's broken down between sports and TCG segments. One of the things I always call out is, as we see the number of Japanese sets fall off in terms of the most graded sets here in the TCG space, you watch the PSA gem rate drop, and that's because we all know those Japanese printers, they know how to do it right. The gem rate in those sets is phenomenal. It is through the roof. So whenever those sets have a high degree of grading, it literally pulls the entire gem rate up for the month for PSA. But since Japanese cards have been working their way down, we're seeing that gem rate come down just a little bit too. Now, CGC, it's very interesting to watch CGC's gem rates change over time. It wasn't long ago where we went through 4 or 5 months where their gem rate was up in the mid to high 60% range. Then it's been working its way down, and now 45.9% gem rate last month is as low as I have seen. So it's very interesting. I don't know what goes on there. I don't know if they just do big bulks for all of these. You know, sometimes they're part of a mystery pack group or something like that. So I don't know what's going on, but it's been interesting to watch it bounce around. And that's why I always say grade with the company you love, grade with the company that's going to give you the most joy out of it, because these numbers, they're not really worth a whole lot, right? And then you look at Beckett, right? The gem rate is really high, but you and I both know the gem rate's going to be high because anybody who sends to Beckett nowadays most likely is chasing those coveted black labels. So they're sending the very best of the best through the Beckett in hopes of getting the gem rate. So, or in hopes of getting the black label. So of course the gem rate's going to be high because it doesn't meet a black label. It darn sure better hit a 9.5 if that's what you're sending it through for. So really interesting takeaways. And again, this is more just for fun versus education. I want you guys to take a look at it, but always grade with the company that you love the most. And then the final slide that we talk about here is, it is just incredible to see the growth and the strength of just this card collecting hobby as a whole. These numbers right here are representative of everything: baseball, basketball, football, Pokemon, Lorcana, One Piece, you name it. It is all encompasses here in these bar graphs, which represent grading volume at PSA. And again, I like PSA, but even if you don't, in terms of grading volume, they are so far and away above all of the other grading companies. It is the best indicator of what's going on at the macro level. Like the other ones aren't even close. I mean, they're fractional number of cards graded versus PSA. And when you look at this right here, this is a graph which represents a very steady growth hobby. There's a lot of people in it now. There continues to be more over time. Grading still continues to prove valuable. Again, I know it's not for everybody. I hate to beat that drum, but I just want to make sure everybody understands. Listen, my kids, they love their binders, right? They have binders and binders of raw cards. Brings them so much joy. One of my favorite things is sitting on the couch and going through with them. My youngest kid absolutely loves the color blue. She has a binder full of nothing but blue cards, and we get the most amount of joy from flipping through them together. It's fantastic. So the hobby is meant to bring joy in however you see fit, but I do think that this data sets, all of this information around the most graded cards and characters and, you know, sets and all of that, like, it helps paint a picture of what the macro market is doing right now. And that's what I always try and do, and try and bring the best information that I possibly can. So if you made it to the end of this video, if you had a ton of fun, hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. Those 2 small things go a long way in helping my small channel out, and I really appreciate it. All right, everybody, I'll talk to you soon. See you later. Bye.